For everybody who feels like whatever it is won't happen for them, it's like, why not? It has to happen for somebody.
If you follow what you're passionate about, if you follow your interests, and it feels like you're going nowhere in the moment, you're just building the pillars, or like you said, planting the seeds for when it does happen.
And then it got to a point to where I realized that if I don't take the shot, someone else will.
The big takeaway for me was the faster you fail, the better, like accept that you've got to fail. So just rather than hang on to not wanting to fail for years sometimes, like just let the freaking failure spot happen so you can go on to 2.0, 3.0, 4.0.
I, growing up, big boxing fan. To this day, I'm still a big boxing fan. And I remember the first time I met Mike Tyson. My whole life, I always wondered what I would say to Mike Tyson when I met him in person. And when I finally met him, I walked up, I shook his hand and said,
all right, what's up, y'all? It's Parker with UPBEAT. We're back for another awesome episode. We've got Mr. Headkrack on the show with us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic.
I'm so excited to have him on the show. We crossed paths actually at VidCon, and it was a pleasure meeting you there, man. Did you enjoy your experience?
It was a very eye-opening experience because I remember when my kids first hit me up about VidCon, it was like, yeah, we want to go to VidCon. I'm like, what is VidCon? Then I looked it up. And I still didn't really quite know what it was. It was trying to figure out what tier package I needed to buy to make sure my kids had the best time, because they don't really bug me about a lot of things, but they was very adamant about wanting to go to VidCon. So I didn't want to fumble it. You know what I mean? So whatever influencer or YouTuber or Instagrammer they wanted to see, I wanted to make sure, they'd be able to have that premium access. So they got a chance to meet and take pictures with mad people. And for me, it was the panels that I attended, and even stopping at some of the different booths and stations, hence how we ended up meeting. And,
Yes.
We working on some big things in the background. So it was amazing. And I'm looking forward to going back next year as well.
Nice. So that's cool to hear about, though, that you were there primarily for your kids then, and for people who they look up to. I know you from the hip hop scene and radio scene and stuff. So I thought that you might have been there for your own stuff too.
Yeah, I always say no empty trips, right? Every place I go, I always make sure that I get the most out of the situation, even if it's just a trip to the store. So VidCon, it was bigger than a store, and it was also a great situation, just to learn and soak in some knowledge, because I didn't necessarily have the best approach to tackling social media, running into people who actually worked for Instagram and Meta and YouTube and Google. It helped me fast track some things I was having some issues with.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome.
You can't see her. She's not on camera, but the amazing Melissa Peterman is here, actually.
Oh,
She's
nice.
the host of Person, Place, or Fit. I'm doing a podcast.
Melissa, how's it going?
She just got finished crushing it on Pictionary.
Oh, nice.
Or it's loud.
It was a mixture of both. It was
Mixture.
loud, it was fun, and she was crushing it. You could be on the lookout for the new season of her show coming out very soon, and you can see her on Pictionary as well.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's going to be amazing.
All right, ma'am, get out of this podcast.
No way.
Parker knows a little bit of everybody, so you're no stranger to Parker.
Well, I love this man. I think he's so talented on so many different things, and he's just also a kind human, and he's just amazing.
Well, thank you so much. You out of here for the week?
Yeah, I'm out of here.
God bless you. It was good seeing you.
I truly love you.
Love you back.
Okay.
Yeah, have a great one.
That's awesome. Yeah,
It's
everybody,
so awesome.
everybody, look out for that. We'll put links in the descriptions.
Hell yeah! It's never a dull moment up here, and I love it.
Nice. Well, yeah. So I guess people are excited to listen to this episode, and we want to know kind of firstly your background, your story. So if you don't mind, I know that's a big question, but 2 or 3 minutes, what are some of the highlights so people can be caught up?
Okay, so graduated from high school, and then it was time to figure out what I was going to do with my post-high school life. Because a lot of people peak in high school. You know what I mean? If you was a high school football dude and, you had scored the winning touchdown like Al Bundy, some people rest on their laurels. But I knew this is the time where I needed to figure it out. So I ended up getting an internship working at a record company. And that fast-tracked a lot of things because I got a chance to learn a lot about the business from the background side of things. And it also introduced me to major players within the record and radio industry that would actually later on become allies for me and allowed me to actually get my foot in the door at different radio stations. Because in addition from me calling into different stations and winning contests and things like that, I was also servicing records to DJs and program directors and music directors. So a lot of people already kind of knew who I was ahead of time. So when this new station came to town back in 2000 called 97.9 The Beat, they didn't have no DJs. And me and my homie Keynote and Super K, we turned in a tape and it was just like a no brainer. Like, yo, we definitely got to put Headkrack on. And, and my crew came with me. And then next thing you know, we had a night show. The night show became number one. Fast forward 4 more years, the opportunity to do a morning show came into play. They paired me with Ricky Smiley. That situation ended up getting syndicated. That syndicated situation put us in the eyes of, TV producers who wanted to start a new brand of entertainment news show called Dish Nation. And we were one of the flagship shows on that. And here we are at this point in time where Dish Nation is like 12 seasons in, about to start season 13. And I'm still there from day one. So it's beautiful. And, then also, between point A and point B, I ended up getting my own morning show. I ended up having to lead that situation because it wasn't necessarily a good one for me. But at the end of the day, I'm just, still rolling with the punches and just, seeking out new entertaining opportunities, all along the way. And God just keeps blessing me with really dope things. And, I just don't take none of it for granted. And I just try to maximize every single moment, man. No empty trips.
Awesome. Love that. I love that line too. No empty trips. And I think it's cool. Just to, for listeners who maybe aren't super familiar with radio, being syndicated is a freaking big deal and not something to look over. Like that's a national thing, and you've gotten multiple syndicated shows and big experiences from that. Was there kind of a deeper meaning too behind your talents and the things you were pursuing with rap and with radio? Like, were you trying to I guess, make it through hard times and that was something you found safety in, or were you trying to help more people?
Well, music was always my diary, right? That was my coping mechanism. Music was the thing that allowed me to just be creative and be competitive because, they had all these different open mic situations that you can go attend in the cities I lived in, whether we talk about New York or Dallas. And I was just always a naturally competitive person. So music allowed me to be creatively competitive. And I just really enjoyed and thrived in that because, there was no limits to what you could do or say in that space, whether you talk about rap battles or even like a battle of the hip hop groups kind of thing where like everybody like performs and whoever had the best set that night won something. I just loved all of it because I'm just born to compete for whatever reason, right? So that was always like my main thing that I cared about the most, but it was everything else I was doing that people knew me more for because you get to see me do those things at a way higher frequency than you did the music stuff. Like if you didn't come to a club, you wouldn't see me perform because I wasn't rapping every time I turned the mic on the radio. I'm doing the radio business and I'm trying to like make sure people have a good time. And then the syndicated aspect of it, I mean, you've been in the business as well. It used to be set up one way, and then it kind of changed between point A and point B. Definitely like around the 2000s. Like I came in right as things were changing up a lot. There used to be all these independent stations, and now you have these major conglomerates buying all these smaller stations. And when years ago, syndication was kind of like, all right, you on in this market, and now you on in this other market, so now you're getting double the money because you're on in that market. And then between point A and point B, these companies is like, yeah, we're going to put you on in these markets. We're going to pay you the same, but we're going to like, whether it's
Yeah.
bonus structure or, everybody's thing is different. I can't speak for everybody in the industry, but I know the game they was trying to play on our side is like, yeah, we're going to pay you a little bit more, but yeah, you're not going to get this times however many markets you on. And that was kind of like, I was like, oh man, I thought that's how that worked, and then come to find out it didn't. But I also am not ignorant enough to understand that pop radio and urban radio operate way different.
Right.
If a lot of people within the urban radio space knew what some of these pop station people were getting paid in even smaller markets, they would set the studio on fire and never return. you know,
Yeah.
but but me understanding that, like, hey, listen, I'm just, I was fortunate enough to even be blessed into that situation. I just tried to create other situations within that situation to, get me all the things I need. Cause I never really did it because I wanted the most money in the business. I just wanted to try to change and impact as many lives as I could, whether it be because I broke your record or I put you on to an artist that changed your life. Cause I remember those DJs that played songs that first, or introduced me to artists that I didn't know about. And that was really what I wanted to do within the radio space. I wanted to be the guy who led you to the new things that, you fell in love with.
Yeah, you're kind of the plug, the connector to everything.
Yeah.
It's been great. And I would say it speaks a lot about you too. I've done some research and listened to some previous podcasts that you've been on. And one thing you mentioned in some of the drama maybe that was taking place is that you got to a point where you either, you torch the place or you tip your hat and you leave like a gentleman. And it's cool, like the way that you've been an example to other people and like how you handled that situation and moved on,
It's not always the easiest thing to do. You know what I mean? Especially when you know how you operate, and not everybody always operates in that same space of fairness and righteousness. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm not trying to paint myself to be a saint. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but at the end of the day, I'm always going to give it to you fair, and I'm always going to do the job that you hired me to do, and I ain't going to just do the bare minimum. I'm gonna go above and beyond the call of duty. But I'm sure you've experienced it, and anybody who's been in this business can experience it too, that no matter how great your intentions are, there are going to be people who are not going to get it, or who maybe have their own ulterior motive or agenda that will try to, like, throttle your success and your growth. Because whether it be because they don't understand it, or maybe they're jealous because they didn't see their things, come to fruition the way they wanted it to. I mean, I can't understand why a lot of people do the thing they do. All I can be accountable is for me. So, like, I'm not going to give you a reason to call the cops on me. I'm just going to bounce, let you wallow in your own filth.
Right. Absolutely. And that leads to a question as well that I had for you, which is about doing all the different things that you do. Because radio is a big part of it, rap, hip hop, music. But we know that you've got some other big things in the background that we're working with you on. But then also you're actor, comedian, father, like you've got a lot of stuff going on. So what is it about all these different things that has kind of drawn you to them? And how do you balance all of it?
Well, yeah, I would definitely say that I'm one of those people who always gets bored easy. And most people would just be like, oh, you have ADD. But I have to have multiple things going just to keep me interested.
Right.
I think I spent so much of my life overstimulated to where I constantly have to be doing things to keep me interested in what's happening at the moment. Even when I was on the radio, most people who was in a position that I was in, they would have a board op and they would never touch the board.
Right.
I had to run the board because it kept me from being bored, and it just kept me on my toes, and I know where it's going, and I know when we got to go to break and all those other things. So juggling multiple things has never been an issue for me. And it's one of those things in this business, especially in this 2024 version of this business, you have to do 1,000 things, because the second that, like, whoever cuts your check decides that, oh, you're no longer of use to us, or you're getting too big for the brand, and decides to cut you off, you got to have other things to fall back on. Because, if I didn't have TV to fall back on, if I didn't have music to fall back on, stand up to fall back on, I would have been cold out here, when I left, so just as a defense mechanism, and also to keep my brain entertained, I just have to always keep challenging myself to do something new. And it keeps me from being bored, and it's never a dull moment, like I was saying earlier.
Right. Awesome. Well, yeah, I know that's going to resonate with a lot of the listeners. And that question actually came in from our TikTok live stream.
Shout out to the TikTokers.
Yeah, her name's B, and she asked about how to balance these things. I think a lot of creators, just in the world that we live in now of social media and creating, doing a live stream and doing a YouTube or a podcast or whatever, people have their normal jobs, they have their creative endeavors, they have their families, and they're just like, how do we do all of this? And it can be challenging, but it kind of comes down to your prioritizing and time management, and also your dream, your mission, like what you want to achieve. And
And
go
everything you
ahead.
said right there is spot on the money, because I think I explained everything except how do I do it, and it's everything you just said. It is time management, which is something that I'm always trying to work on and balance, because the days go by so much faster when you're an adult and have a crazy
Right.
schedule and a crazy life. And there are some pockets of time where there's certain things that I'm just not doing. When I was starting to take stand up very seriously, I wasn't doing music because I was putting all of my energy into learning the craft of stand up, how to write a joke, how to, work the room, how to turn my little notes into premises. So sometimes I do have to put certain things on the back burner and then come back to it. But that's the only way I can do it without juggling everything and then be dropping things along the wayside. And, you know, I don't mean it, but sometimes I wish I knew how to do less things.
Yeah. Like you've done so much that's like when you do have a moment and you're slowing down, you're like, this doesn't seem right. It seems like something's wrong.
Yo, when it's like 11 o'clock at night or even after midnight and I decide that I want to try to play video games, I still somehow feel guilty about that because I feel like I should be doing something else. But at the end of the day, if you do not take little time just to do things that you like, or even like you were saying before, kind of create a schedule to where like, all right, from like 10 to 11, this is what I'm doing. From 12 to whatever, this is what I'm doing. You're gonna be kind of running in place and maybe not necessarily be as effective during your day as you can. It does get a little gamey when you talk about like creative things. Like me and my manager talk about this all the time. Like I'll be like, yo, if I'm editing a video, I'm gonna edit the video till it's done. And she's like, well, you need to put a parameter of time on when you'll finish it. And it's like, it doesn't work like that for me. Like I know when it's done. And if there's some effects that I want to add or like an edit that I need to go to a certain way, I'm gonna have to take that tedious time to make it happen. So, you just gotta try to schedule yourself as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of good tactics in there for everybody. As far as like faith and values and maybe your dream and your mission, how have those things impacted you? Like, do you feel like a lot of what you're doing is a calling?
Yeah. I feel like I was always pushed into this direction. I always tell people all the time, like, it feels like a lot of things in my life were a lot like the movie Slumdog Millionaire, where certain things are happening in your life or you're doing something or you're around something. You don't quite know in real time why this is a thing until you're in that moment. And it's like, oh, that's why. Even what I'm doing right now at Pictionary, all those years that I didn't do anything until Price is Right went off was me planting the seeds in the back of my mind of how game shows operate. And, how many different ways as an announcer can you inflect or make certain things sound exciting? I used to always pay attention to that guy, Rod Roddy. That was the guy who did the voiceover stuff for Bob Barker when he was doing Price is Right. He might even do it for Drew Carey now, but I don't know why I was always fascinated with that. And now as I sit inside of, this building doing this game show, I realize, oh, that's what that was for. Same thing with Dish Nation. I used to watch Entertainment Tonight, and it used to come on late in New York. And I didn't really understand why I wanted to watch that instead of cartoons. But then when it was time to do entertainment news, I was like, oh yeah, because I used to watch John Tesh and Mary Hart and Lisa Gibbons, talk about celebrities and entertainers and like study their style and their approach to it and applied my science to what I do. So I just, I question nothing and I try to learn from everything.
That's a good life lesson right there. And I think, there's some really deep kind of other tangents we could go on if we had more time. But the gist of it being that if you follow what you're passionate about, if you follow your interests, and it feels like you're going nowhere in the moment, you're just building the pillars, or like you said, planting the seeds for when it does happen and when it does come to fruition later. And you can look back and be like, oh, okay, I can connect all these dots now.
Yeah. I mean, and also too, like, when you do feel stagnant, you do sometimes have to do a personal assessment and figure out when it's time to move around and do something different. People always say that quote, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. And
Right.
and I feel like we've all been in a point at some point in our lives where we feel like I'm spinning all these wheels, but what am I getting out of it? What's the end game? Am I really getting further? And it's not until you get to these uncomfortable positions where either you move on your own or someone forces you to make a move on your own can you really, 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 get some growth and achieve that next level. Because it's really easy to get complacent, and that's in anything, relationships, jobs, even friendships. A lot of us, serve friendships that don't necessarily benefit us in the long run and maybe hurts us more in the long run than it does help us. So you just got to know when to shake the spot.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for that. We'll just kind of wrap up here with a few questions that have come in from TikTok. And there's one kind of fun one we'll save to the end, and then I'll
Okay.
do like a beatbox for you as well. And
Woo! Let's
hopefully this
go.
time it comes through. I know I tried to earlier on a
Oh
Zoom
yeah,
call.
the little noise cancellation thing. Yeah, it was shutting the beatbox down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, microphones, AI, whatever you want to call it, they're not trained on beatboxing yet.
Yeah, gremlins in the machine.
Right. So one of the questions is advice for hustlers, and I think they looked up your like a previous show of yours as well, and just were wondering if you could only give like one tidbit of advice to a hustler or someone who's trying to build their dream and build their way out of a bad situation. What advice would you give?
If you're currently in a bad situation and you know the situation is bad, you gotta look around for your life raft. And by life raft, I mean, what's the situation that you can jump into that won't necessarily be better than the situation that you're in, but a situation to where you can at least shelter yourself for a second while you build the next thing that you're trying to do. It's kind of like when you ride a motorcycle and it start raining and it's all terrible. You can't be out here in the rain on a motorcycle. So you go into an underpass. It's not necessarily the ideal thing. You can't post up there forever, but it allows you to regroup, look around and figure out what the next play is. So whether it's a job, because I know so many people who like get mad and quit a job, but have no plan B job to go to after that. So like
Hmm.
3 weeks later, when you are without a check, you wish you would have kept that job. So before you jump ship, make sure you got a raft to land on and you plan. And if you are one of those people who's had an idea to do something and you've been sitting on that idea for 12 months, 3 years, 4 years, what is stopping you from doing it? Just do it. If you've done the research, you've done the work on whatever it is that you want to do, take that first step. The hardest part sometimes is the first step, but once you get going, you'll realize that second and third step is going to be easy, and now you got some forward motion on what you're trying to do. But don't let that idea just nestle in your brain as an unactive plan. Get to it.
Love that. Yeah. Huge insight there. We'll definitely clip that in like social media posts for you.
Thank you, brother.
Kaylee G from Kaylee G Photography, also watching on TikTok. She says she asked a question earlier that said, "Where did you find the courage to legitimately go for your dream?" And maybe like what keeps you like fired up to do that.
I mean, I've never been afraid of doing anything, but I can't take all the credit. I always had people around me that were supportive. And having people that have your back, whether it's a friend, family member, manager, or even sometimes just your inner voice, it helps tremendously. So even going back to like my earlier years when I was just first starting to like rhyme, I always had a rap partner. I never rapped by myself in the beginning. I was deputizing whoever I could deputize to kind of be my running mate. So I remember when I was in the seventh grade, there was this kid named Hassan Wilson, and he lived in the same building I lived in the Bronx. And he was another kid who didn't really like going outside like that because the neighborhood we lived in was hella dangerous. So we would just play video games all day and just watch rap related stuff and write rhymes. And then, he was like kind of like we was each other's security blanket to get out there and be vocal. And the more and more I started doing it on my own, I just got comfortable and confident. And, and then it got to a point to where I realized that if I don't take the shot, someone else will. So for everybody who feels like whatever it is won't happen for them, it's like, why not? It has to happen for somebody.
Right.
So the worst thing you could ever do is not do it, because even if you fail, at least there's a takeaway that can help you do whatever it was you was trying to do better. Whether it's start a business. Most people's first business fails because that one's a learning curve. It's the second or third business that sometimes really turns into fruition. I think a great example is I don't know if you ever heard of Slutty Vegan.
Mm-mm.
So Slutty Vegan is a very popular vegan-based burger chain it used to be just in Atlanta. And the lady who started it, her name is Pinky Cole. That was like her second or third food business. The first two didn't work out for whatever reason. But the third one, after, hitting your head a couple times and realizing, okay, this is what I did wrong and this is what I could do better, she created this thing called Slutty Vegan that started as a food truck. And every place she went, the food truck would have like people just lined up for blocks. And then it turned into brick and mortars. Then there was more brick and mortar stores. And now there's Slutty Vegans all over the country. And if they're not in your city yet, they will be soon. But it all came from her not being afraid to go out there and fail. And
Yep.
I think some of us are so pride driven that, we don't want to lose, but losing is a part of learning. And, thank God I've won more than I've lost, but I definitely have fumbled the ball and half started some things that probably could have been more successful if I would have went about it a different way. But I know what my weaknesses are. And, and I tell people all the time, it's like, hey, I can walk in and tell you the idea, but I'm going to need some help because admin is not my strong suit. I'm the idea guy. You know what I mean? So like when you
Right.
put the ideas with the admin, you're unstoppable, So it all helps to know what you need and not be afraid to get out there.
That was amazing. And it kind of the big takeaway for me was the faster you fail, the better, like accept that you've got to fail. So just rather than hang on to not wanting to fail for years, sometimes like just let the freaking failure spot happen so you can go on to 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, because it's always going to get better as you go.
Indeed.
Love that. So we'll wrap up with this final question from some of the TikTok fans here that have looked into what you do and are excited about it. They want to know maybe some of your favorite artists that you've run into over your career, some of the top celebrities you've met, and maybe if you've got like a fun story or whatever with that.
Man, the blessing of doing what I do, right? I get to meet a little bit of everybody. And growing up, big boxing fan. To this day, I'm still a big boxing fan. And I remember the first time I met Mike Tyson, it was in Miami at this Yele Haiti benefit thing. Like they had a bunch of different celebrities working the phone banks. Mike Tyson was there. Chris Brown was there. Me, Ricky Smiley, a bunch of other people. And when I met Mike, he was real cool and nonchalant. I think he was on because Mike have his up years, his down years. I think he was kind of having a down year, but he was still there, right?
Right.
And, my whole life, I always wondered what I would say to Mike Tyson when I met him in person. And when I finally met him, I woke up, I shook his hand and said, I use you all the time in fight night. I didn't know what else to say in real time in that moment. You know what I'm saying? Because like you just think that,
All submissive to all quiet.
hey, like, man, Parker, like, because you
Oh
think
man.
these people have heard it all. Like, man, you're the champ. You're the greatest boxer that ever lived. And I was like, well, what's something he probably hasn't heard today? And,
Yeah.
he's like, thank you, brother. Thank you. And then I ended up meeting him again later at Comic-Con, and and he was just as equally cool. He gave me a quick little interview and stuff like that, even though his handlers didn't want him interviewing people. So that was dope. 50 Cent is also always a great interview. I remember, one of the first few years I was in radio, he had dropped a video game on Xbox called Bulletproof, and I ended
Mhm.
up winning the video game tournament that they had for that game, and I got like a autographed 50 Cent Bulletproof vest. So that was kind of a big deal. Man, like seeing Andre 3000 just in Atlanta, being in Atlanta, it goes on and on and on, man. Even
Yeah.
through, like, in the radio space, there was a show that was doing their show next to our show. It was Ed Lover and Moni Love. And I'm such a big Yo MTV Raps fan from back in the day, to be working in the studio next to the guy from Yo MTV Raps. It was like a really huge deal to me. And oh snap, that's Moni Love from Ladies First. I used to have a crazy crush on her when I was a kid. So to be around all these people that I idolized and grew up looking up to, and now be able to be friends with these people, like, even, I don't know if you ever heard of Cool Herc. I'm sure you have, because
Mhm.
you know your stuff. Man, I got a chance to go all around the Bronx with Cool Herc in his van.
Dang.
I know it sounds weird. Just I jumped in his van and we went around the Bronx. But he gave me and my lady like the best tour of the Bronx that no one will ever get. He took us to like a strip club. He showed us where the son of Sam used to work at this particular post office on 149th Street, and it was a
Like a
wild
real
adventure.
like a real-time documentary. You're
And
just, like, with him hanging out.
I wish this was a year that the Meta Ray-Ban glasses came out, because I would have been recording everything, because it was so unbelievable. And it's like, man, like, hip hop is so young that the people that started it, a lot of them are still around. So to be able to, like, pick up my phone and call somebody like a Cool Herc or a Greg Nice or a Chubb Rock, it just makes my heart smile, because these were the people I wanted to be like growing up. So to be able to, like, call them my peers and friends, it means a lot to me, because I look up to these guys.
Yeah, and what's cool too is you are that to a lot of people.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, don't, like, look over that part. Like, you're an inspiration to a ton of people just in you pursuing your dreams, and then, they'll be encouraged to pursue theirs.
You never know how the things that we do will inspire the people who are watching, even if we think no one's watching.
Right.
And that's one thing I learned. And I think I seem to downplay my stuff, because I don't know, like, I want to get to a point to where I could snap my fingers, and just because I did that, now you get a show. Or this person, now we just greenlit a movie for this person because I co-signed and endorsed it. Like, that's the true measure of success for me. Not necessarily all the things I could do for myself, but when you have the power to ignite others,
Yeah.
off of your cosign, that is the true measure of, like, real success for me, man. Like, like a Tyler Perry. People could say what they want about him doing everything. However, if Tyler Perry tomorrow decides he wants to be Mickey Mouse in a live action movie that's shot on Tyler Perry Studios, and he wants to hire 100 actors and actresses to do it, guess what? It's a go.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, so like, I want to be in that kind of space, and
Right.
some of it does involve money, and some of it just involves people
And
trusting you with their money, so you can get those loans from the different investors to do these things.
yeah, and that could be a whole other episode, just, reputable brand. That could be a whole other thing. But
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's good
People
advice
just
too.
throw money at Mr. Beast. This man is like, and that's another great example. Mr. Beast is out here putting Lamborghinis in blenders, and also buying communities of homes for people who need homes. Like, he's really doing the best of both worlds, and I love to
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah, me too. Well, hey, thanks so much, Headcrack, for being on Upbeat, man. I appreciate you.
Yo, thank you for having me, and shout out to everybody on your TikTok feed who's tapping in, asking the questions. Shout out to y'all. And yeah, man, check out my project. It's called Microdose. It's out right now. It's a self-help hip hop album. My manager hates to hear me describe it that way, but people who have been listening to it, who was like in a funk or whatever, when they're done, they feel way better after listening to it. And that was the intent of the project. So shout out to everybody who tapped in.
Amazing. And we'll close it out right now with a quick beatbox for you. Hopefully it all comes through.
Parker Kane is insane, man. Yo, man.
Thank you.
Brother, man, we got to do something in the lab for real, man. I love the fact that you can hit so many tones and frequencies in what you do, man. Yo, you a beast. You a beast, bro.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, we'll connect soon. And thanks so much for being on the show.
Anytime, my friend, man. Much love to everybody out there in the galaxy, man. See y'all soon.